Welcome to the worst sports channel on YouTube, Hot Garbage Sports, with me, Coach Ryan D. It is GM week, and I am here to answer the question for you: where do NHL players come from? And no, I do not mean their country of origin. I mean one of the 10 bajillion leagues that produce NHL players in 2021. There are so many leagues and paths to the NHL. It is one of the most complex sports in order to make the pros, even though it is one of the smallest sports in North America compared to the other big three, as well as the gigantic worldwide phenomenon that is soccer. But soccer is not considered a major sport yet in North America. It is if you think of like watching soccer overseas, but the MLS is not there yet. So the North American leagues are not considered in one of the big four. So when I say big four: hockey, basketball, football, baseball. So stick with us till the end of the video. I am going to help everybody here watch hockey just a little bit better this GM week, so you can understand where your favorite players are coming from, why your favorite players are being drafted from this league, and what paths did your players take in order to make the NHL. So when watching or just taking a look at your phone ticker, because it's summer, that's probably what you're going to do anyway. If you're just following your own team, you can understand a little bit better about where these players come from. Roll the intro.
Here's Lemieux. The center penalty coming up.
So in 2019, the website EliteProspectsHockey.com broke down where NHL players came from in today's NHL, meaning the last league they played in before they made their jump to the NHL. Elite Prospects categorize them into numbers and percentages. But remember, I'm going to pull up this list. Many players played in multiple versions of different leagues, or these leagues in particular, before they joined their final league before making the NHL. So this list doesn't really tell the whole story, but let's pull it up anyway. All right, so you have two paths here: junior and college, which basically means you're not getting paid to play hockey, and pro leagues, you're getting paid to play hockey. The junior and college ranks produce almost more NHL players than anyone else on the planet. Yes, we're going to talk about the AHL on the right in a minute, but junior and college hockey is where NHL players come from. And we all know we have the NCAA, which is a college hockey program, but we may or may not know that we have the CHL, which is a Canadian hockey program comprised of 3 leagues, as well as the United States Junior Hockey League programs. And the United States Junior Hockey League programs can feed into the NCAA. It's this whole cluster of things that are going on, plus a bunch of provincial Canadian leagues. Complex, we'll get into them. Then on the pro side, we have the American Hockey League, which we know is usually the final stop for a lot of players not considered top tier first round, basically first 3 to 6 draft picks. We have the AHL, which is considered the final stop before the NHL for a lot of the prospects that we're going to see in this year's draft. It is a very good league because it allows European players to get acclimatized to the North American ice and style of the game. Yes, we have 2 different rinks. Europe and Russia play a totally different game of hockey than North America. Back to the list. The AHL gives those players the opportunity to learn the pro game on that ice. It also gives the junior and college players from the left-hand column the ability to play against other pros while they develop a pro level mentality to play in the NHL. And then we have the KHL and all the European pro leagues. Okay, you got it yet? Really easy.
Fuck you, Shorzy.
That's where NHL players come from. The other thing to consider is giving us a subscribe, a like, and a follow on this channel. We break down things in hockey from a coaching, GM, or scouting standpoint that no other hockey channel is breaking down on YouTube. This is very unique content, and I believe this may be one of the first times many of you have ever seen or heard a lot of the factoids and paths to the NHL that we are going to explain in this video directly. So think about joining up with us, please and thank you. So in order to give you an idea of the paths, we are going to break the world in half. We're going to talk about the North American paths, and then we're going to break up the Canadian and American paths there, and we're going to talk about the European and Russian paths and the rest of the world in order to get to the NHL. It is complex, it's long, but it is fun. It is a ton of fun. There are so many cool things to look at. Let's start with North America, shall we? Because that is where the largest group of players comes from. So in North American junior hockey, we have 3 categories. We have major junior, which is comprised of the CHL. So when you hear the term CHL or Canadian Hockey League, know that's actually a catch-all term for 3 separate hockey leagues known as the Western Hockey League, or the DUB, the Ontario Hockey League, or the O, and the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Yes, LHJMO. CHO, which is the French version of it for Quebec and the Maritimes. And even though it's called the Canadian Hockey League, it actually extends down to all Americans, and Americans are allowed to play in this league. Then we have the United States Hockey League, which is a strictly American hockey league where Canadian players are considered import players into that league. Europeans and Russians can play in both of these leagues. This is considered the best tier of junior in the world. This is where the best players in the world play. Junior A or Tier 1. You confused yet? Major Junior, then Junior A and Tier 1? Nice naming conventions. You have 11 leagues in here that do one of two things. They either go direct to NHL entrance or they feed into the major junior / collegiate ranks so you can take one more step before the NHL. So we have the North American Hockey League, which ironically is only an American hockey league, but hey, here we go. We have the British Columbia Hockey League, which used to be a part of the Canadian Junior Hockey League, which is not the same as the Canadian Hockey League, right? Confused yet? Don't worry, we'll unconfuse you. The British Columbia Hockey League in April of this year went rogue and broke away from the CJHL on the right here, which is actually the governing body. Just like the Canadian Hockey League is the governing body for 3 leagues, the CJHL is the governing body for 9 leagues, which used to be 10 across Canada, which are a step down from the W, the O, and the Q. They incorporate the Alberta Junior Hockey League, home of Cale Makar, the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. Because Ontario's Ontario, they get 4 leagues, the SIJHL, the OJHL, the NOJHL, and the CCHL. And then Quebec gets 1 league, and the Maritimes all get 1 league. These leagues feed into the above major junior leagues as well as college. But college stands on its own. It's why it's not on this page. And then we have Junior B and Tier 2. Way too much to get into. So let's start with the cream of the crop. Major junior, age 16 to 20. There is a caveat. You can play in this league as a 15-year-old if you're given exceptional status. Connor McDavid is a notable player that was given exceptional status. And we have 2 players right now playing in this league that you are going to see in 2022 and 2023 as the first overall draft picks. Mark my word. Shane Wright from Ontario is going to be the 2022 first overall draft pick. He played in the OHL as a 15-year-old. And Connor Bedard, who may be one of the best players that will ever lace up skates in the NHL. This kid is that good. Was the first ever player allowed to play in the Western Hockey League at age 15. He will be the first overall draft pick in the 2023 draft. Mark it in, slam it in, done deal. That's who's going. Easy picks. So the Canadian Hockey League and the 3 leagues that run under it are very unique. They are geographical leagues, meaning if you are born, or if you are playing, I shouldn't say born, if you are playing hockey at age 15 in the zone designated for your particular league, you must play in that league. So the Western Hockey League is British Columbia to Manitoba, as well as America. If you draw the border from Manitoba to the West Coast, down the middle of the states, all those Americans can play in the league. They're not considered imports. Russians and Europeans can play in here, but there is a maximum amount of imports per team. The Ontario Hockey League, the cream of the crop of these 3 leagues right now, produces some of the most NHL draft picks and players, and that is simply because they have the largest population to draw from, and they have a league that has an advantage over the WHL and the Quebec Major Junior League, and that is geographic region. It's tighter, it's easier to scout. So when you have more players and it's easier to scout, it's just inevitably going to be better. They take players from Ontario as well as the Great Lakes region from the United States. And in the United States, the best hockey players in the US in numbers come from the big M's. Minnesota, which will go to the Western Hockey League, but then you end up with Michigan, which is a massive hockey state going into the OHL, Maine, and Massachusetts. Some of those states go into Quebec, but the fact that Michigan goes into the OHL, kind of a cheat code. Then you have the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, which is Quebec, the Maritimes, and East Coast United States. NCAA with a big red no-no on here. Once you've played in the Canadian Junior Hockey League, 1 game equals 1 year. You play 3 games in here, your eligibility is shot. You can no longer play in the NCAA. Sure, there's a few little like backdoor things. I'm not going to get into those. Nobody cares about them in this video. So you cannot play in the NCAA if you play in the Canadian Junior Hockey League. You are choosing the Canadian Junior Hockey League for several reasons. 1, this league plays 68 game regular seasons, and by the time you're done, you're going to end up playing anywhere from 100 to 140 games in this league per year, with massive amounts of travel on the road and at home, mimicking an NHL season. NHL scouts love this league for that reason. It develops players to be hockey players, and the more games you play, the more you're going to develop skill. Period. End of story. That is why this league is one of the best direct entry paths to the NHL. But the NCAA says, nope, you play in this league, you can't come see us later. The American Hockey League, you actually cannot play in the American Hockey League from the CHL until you are age 21 or older. There is a deal between Hockey Canada and the NHL where they will not take players into the AHL if they still are eligible to play in the CHL. This is one of those old school legacy deals that was made to protect the talent in the CHL. The CHL is basically formed in two tiers. You have your 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. Those players are there to develop the 16 and 17-year-olds for the NHL draft. You usually pick, if you're a Canadian Junior Hockey League team, there's about 60 teams, give or take 4 or 5 either way, depending on the year and who adds, blah, blah, blah. Every team in the CHL normally takes 2 16-year-olds per year on their roster, sometimes 3 depending on how talented those players are. Those are the most talented players in the world. The next year, when players turn 17, they usually add another 2 or 3 17-year-olds to their already now 17 list of 16-year-old players that played. That means you have anywhere from 3 to 6 draft eligible players for the NHL on each Canadian Hockey League team, times 6 by 60. That is what you were looking at for draft eligible players. And ironically, and not crazily, almost all of those players will get drafted at some point into the NHL. It just depends on rounds. So there is this weird perception out there in the diehard hockey community that the CHL is dying. The CHL isn't producing the same amount of players, and that if you play in the CHL, it is not a foregone conclusion that you'll get an NHL tryout or a path to the NHL. And that is wrong. If you play in the CHL at 16 or 17, which is when you should play in the CHL as a player, you will probably get a look by an NHL team or drafted. If you join the CHL at 18 or 19, well, you're probably just going to be a feeder player to help develop the younger players later. You might make it. You absolutely might. There's always an exception to every rule I talk about. I'm just talking about averages here. Then on the other side, we have the United States Hockey League, and the United States Hockey League is direct entry into the NHL. It is also home of the United States Development Program, where a lot of the best 16 and 17-year-olds congregate to win World Junior Championships and develop themselves up into the NHL ranks. But the other side purpose of the United States Hockey League is to feed into the NCAA. Coach Ryan, if it's the same age, the same league, and the same tier, why does the CHL not get to go into the NCAA, but the USHL does? Simple answer: politics, legacy programs. They say the CHL is a semi-pro league, so the NCAA doesn't want to take those players. It's just a bunch of old white men fighting around a table, to be honest. So the USHL has become a predominant development ground for NHL players, and you can go direct from the United States Hockey League to the NHL. But if you miss and you're not able to go there, you graduate into the NCAA on a scholarship, and then you will go to the NHL from the NCAA, or at the very least, get your education paid for. And to be fair to the CHL, you will get your education paid for. You just won't be likely playing hockey in the NCAA if you go there, but you can play in Canada. All right, let's go to tier 2. And of course, by tier 2, I mean tier 1. Again, super complex, but the second tier down from major junior is tier 1 or junior A. You have the 9 leagues from the Canadian Junior Hockey League, the BCHL, and the NAHL, the North American Hockey League, only founded in the United States for now. These leagues feed into either the NHL directly, which, you know what? Players have more choices than they ever have before. Think Cale Makar. He played in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, which is a member of the CJHL up there in the top left of your screen. And he went as the 4th overall draft pick to the Colorado Avalanche and is one of the top defensemen in the NHL today. If you are an elite hockey player, you can play in any league. It doesn't matter, and you will get drafted accordingly because the NHL is very good at sorting talent. If you really want to get into the fact that there are busts and miss, we can go ahead and do that in the next video, but I can tell you right now, the NHL is very good at sorting 17, 18, and 19-year-olds into proper categories of draft rounds, and they do a very good job of selecting talent, even though they miss all the time. The best players in the world will always end up playing in the NHL. Always. Just the path changes and the number they're picked changes. So players can go direct to the NHL, but mostly these leagues are developed to move players to the CHL, the NCAA, or the USHL. This is an intermediate step for 16, 17, and 18-year-olds to be able to make a jump to the bigger leagues in order to develop further to make it to the NHL. So now that we've taken a look at the leagues in North America, let's take a look at the path that players can take to get to the NHL or drafted into the NHL. We'll bring it up here. We have 4 common paths. There are literally an infinite amount of paths. So if you see a different path, let me know down below in the comments, but I get it. There are a million ways to make the NHL. These are just 4 common ways for people to wrap their head around the paths players are taking to get to their favorite teams. Now, the AAA prep step That is before Elite, Path 2, Path 3, or Path 4. All players are going to play some version at age 15, 14, and 13 of AAA or prep school, which is like high school hockey programs before they move into any of these leagues below. So there's actually a scouting process from the AAA and prep program into the leagues you see below, but we're not going to get into it. That's for another video. So the elite path, the best players in the world are going to take one of two paths. They're going to go to the CHL or the USHL, whichever league they so choose. Canadians and Americans and Europeans can pick any league they want. There's just rules and restrictions for how many players can play on each team. But at 16 and 17, like I said, they're going to play in these top leagues and they're going to be drafted into the NHL as a 17, 18, or 19-year-old. Whoa. Coach Ryan, what? Drafted 17, 18, or 19? Yep, for confusing all of us, the draft age is from September to September. It is not calendar years. So you can actually incorporate almost 3 distinct ages when being drafted into the NHL, and you can delay your draft year by 1 year, making sure you're drafted as a 19-year-old instead of an 18-year-old. So everyone is normally drafted in or around age 18, but in the Austin Matthews Patrick Laine draft, Patrick Laine was a true 17-year-old and Austin Matthews was 1 or 2 days removed from being a 19-year-old. So you had almost a year and a half difference between those two guys. Happens all the time. And if you were a younger player, you get 1 or 2 years in the developmental league versus the older players who can get 3. That's a big deal. But either way, you can't change your birthday. So here we are. The CHL and the USHL will go direct to the NHL if you were an elite player from those leagues. You're going to skip the East Coast League. You're going to skip the AHL. You're just going to play AAA, CHL, NHL. Done deal. Making the NHL simple, right? Well, maybe if you're elite. Path 2, which are very good players. Let's take Jamie Benn, but maybe they don't go the short way. They play in the Canadian Junior Hockey League or the BCHL, and this is a strictly Canadian path, Path 2. This is just for Canadian players. You're going to play in the Canadian Junior Hockey League or the BCHL. Yes, I know you're already grumbling under your mouth. American players can play too. We have the American path coming next. Chill. The Canadian players will play in the Tier 2, which is Tier 1 or Junior A League, and then they will develop into the Tier 1, which is Major Junior or the NCAA League, and then from there they will go to the American Hockey League or the NHL. Jamie Benn actually played in the BCHL, which used to be part of the CJHL. From the BCHL, he went into the CHL. He played into there, and then from the CHL, he went to the NHL. That is a normal path for players to take, and pretty hard to say Jamie Benn isn't elite. But scouting is funny. Path 3, the American path. Again, Canadians can take this path too. So the North American Hockey League you would play in at 15, 16, or 17. And from that league, you can either go straight to the NHL or you are likely developing yourself to play in the United States Hockey League. From the United States Hockey League, you could go straight to the NHL, but you're likely developing yourself for the NCAA. And then from the NCAA, you're going to take a path into the American Hockey League or the NHL. Think Jimmy Vesey or Tucker Poolman. Jimmy Vesey ends up playing in the United States Hockey League, gets drafted into the NHL from the United States Hockey League, plays in college for his full 4 years, ends up not being protected by the team that drafted him because he waited too long to play. As a free agent, signs in the NHL and picks whatever team he wants to pick. Tucker Poolman ends up moving from the North American Hockey League to the United States Hockey League, to the NCAA, to the American Hockey League, to the NHL. Really, 2 paths to basically similar ends. Path 4, the long path. I call this the Ryan Garbutt path. Look up Ryan Garbutt. I can't think of another player that has played in more leagues than this guy. So you could play in the Canadian Junior Hockey League, which is again 9 leagues, the BCHL, the NAHL, the USHL, and the CHL, and or a combination of many or all of these leagues. Believe it or not, you could move theoretically between more than 1 or 2 of these leagues. And then you end up moving into the East Coast Hockey League, which is a minor pro league under the AHL. From the East Coast League, you can move to the AHL, and from the AHL to the NHL. Ryan Garbutt played in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, which is under the CJHL. From the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, he went to Brown University and played in the NCAA Hockey League. From the NCAA, he moved into a league called the SHL, which is a Southern Pro League over, like a couple states in the South we're not going to talk about. He lit it up in that league. From that league, he got picked up into the East Coast Hockey League. He lit it up in that league. From that league, he got picked up into the American League, lit it up in that league, and then from that league made the NHL at the ripe old young age of 27, 28 years old. What a path. Literally every league. So it is possible. That's where path 4 comes from. All right. So that is the North American path to the NHL. Complex, right? Well, it is and it isn't. So hopefully this squares away some of it for you. If you remember anything from this, Canadian Hockey League is 1, the United States Hockey League is 2, the NCAA is this weird on its own thing that is number 3 but produces a lot of players. Remember, they come from the other league first. And then you have a whole bunch of minor leagues that end up producing straight to the NHL. But the point is, NHL scouts scout all of these and find talent everywhere. Let's go ahead and quickly talk about Europe. Now, the European junior leagues have copied the North American model. They used to just play club hockey right into their pro leagues, and then the NHL would swoop them over. But because of the World Junior Hockey Championships and other reasons, Europe has started developing a robust junior hockey program. And that junior hockey program is as follows. You have 4 key leagues. You have the Swedish Super Elite League, which is where a lot of players come from. You have the SM Liga, which is the Finnish Liga League for juniors, 20 and under. A lot of players come from here. You have the Czechs Under 20 League, a decent amount come from here. And you have the MHL, which is actually a Russian junior league below the KHL that ends up feeding players to the NHL. These leagues stop players from having to play in the big pro leagues and gives them a place to develop all their own, so NHL scouts can come watch players en masse that are eligible for the draft. Because if they're filtered in with a bunch of teams that we're about to look at in the pros, sometimes you can travel to some little town in the middle of Europe to see one player and realize that was a waste of your time. So let's go ahead and take a look at those little pro leagues. So here you go in order for where players come from. You might be wondering right away, why is the KHL so low? The KHL is the second best hockey league in the world. However, a lot of players in the KHL do not make the jump to the NHL. They remain in the KHL for most of their career. So you have the SHL, which is the Swedish Professional League, develops a lot of players. You have the Liga, which is the Finnish Professional League, develops a lot of players. You have the Extra Liga, which is a Czech league. You have the KHL. You have the DEL, which is a German league. You have the NLA, which I skipped over, which is a Swiss league and gaining a lot of notoriety. You have the EBEL, which is an Australian league. Australian? What the heck? Oh, I might. No, it's an Austrian league. Stupid. Ugh. Coach. You have the Extra Liga again in Slovakia because, the country's split up. Then you have the Metal Ligan. Metal Ligan. Probably Metal Ligan. I don't know, actually. You let me know down below in the comments, which is a Danish league, and the Get Ligan, I don't know if I said that right again, which is a Norway league. All right, so you can see that when teams like the Detroit Red Wings, who had awesome European scouting from 96 to 2008 and built their dynasty, they built it off the back of these European leagues we looked at. The junior leagues weren't even formed at that time. They went to all these small cities, towns, countries, and leagues and found players like Pavel Datsyuk and Hendrik Zetterberg and Johan Franzen and pulled them out and put them into their program and won cups on it. Scouting these leagues is very difficult because, as you can see, we got back to the list full circle. As you can see on the right side, how few players actually come from some of these leagues into the NHL. And the funny thing is remember, this league is the last league they played in. This isn't the league they were drafted from. So we're going into the NHL draft. So a lot of these players in the pro leagues were drafted from the left column, which is junior and college ranks, but played a pit stop on the right column in pro. So hopefully that helps you square away the complexities and the fun that we are about to have in this NHL draft week and gives you a few things to learn on that maybe you haven't seen on YouTube before. All right, this has been Coach Ryan D.